You were never meant to hear this. At least, not like this. Because what I am about to tell you is something men in power have always tried to keep hidden, a truth so raw, so unsettling, that it threatens the very illusions on which society rests. Machiavelli hinted at it in The Prince. He dressed it in cunning and strategies of rulers, in the masks that kings and emperors wear. But the real warning, the one beneath his words, is this: if you do not master yourself, someone else will. Read that again. If you do not hold your own mind, your own emotions, your own impulses on a leash as tight as iron, someone else will grab the rope and drag you where they wish. This is the warning you were never supposed to fully grasp, because the powerful thrive not on armies or laws alone, but on your weakness, on your lack of self-control, on your hunger for approval, on your fear of rejection. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, who read Machiavelli before Machiavelli even existed, whispered the same truth in his meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But most of us do not realize it. We rage at events, we collapse at insults, we drown in desires, and every time we do, we become pawns in someone else's game. That is the essence of Machiavelli's warning. You are not supposed to know this, because if you did, if you truly absorbed it into your bones, you would become untouchable. The first layer: the world as a stage of manipulation. Think of the world as a vast theater. Every man and woman is wearing a mask. Every handshake hides a calculation. Every smile hides a motive. Machiavelli understood this, and he taught rulers that people are not driven by reason, but by fear, by desire, by vanity. And here is where Stoicism enters like a blade of fire, because if Machiavelli is right, if the world is driven by manipulation, then the only defense is to strip yourself of everything manipulators feed on. Seneca wrote in his letters to Lucilius, "He who is brave is free." Bravery here does not mean charging into battle. It means the courage to starve your own desires, to laugh at your fears, to master the tides of your own soul. Because what can be taken from a man who needs nothing? What chains can bind the one who has already conquered himself? This is the essence of the warning. The weak are ruled. The strong rule themselves. The red thread: self-mastery as the only defense. Let me paint this clearly. If you fear rejection, you can be controlled by flattery. If you crave comfort, you can be bribed with pleasure. If you burn with anger, you can be provoked into ruin. This is how people are ruled, not by swords, but by their own untamed emotions. Epictetus, once a slave, became a free man long before his physical chains were broken. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that is why we must take Machiavelli's warning seriously, not as cynicism, not as a call to cruelty, but as a brutal reminder. If you do not dominate your own impulses, you will always be dominated by others. The second layer: the dark machinery of power. Now, let us dive deeper. Because Machiavelli was not merely a teacher of kings, he was an anatomist of human weakness. He saw what others refused to see, that people can be made to move like puppets, not by force, but by temptation, fear, and desire. Think of your own life. How many times have you been led not by your reason, but by your hunger for approval? How many times have you betrayed your own values because of fear? How many times have you wasted nights, drowned in distractions, enslaved to pleasures you thought were harmless? That is exactly what rulers want. A distracted man is harmless. A man lost in pleasures is predictable. A man ruled by anger is easy to destroy. But a Stoic? A Stoic is dangerous. Why? Because he cannot be bribed. He cannot be broken by insult. He does not cling to possessions, so theft cannot touch him. He does not cling to status, so humiliation cannot wound him. That is the man Machiavelli feared. That is the man rulers whisper about in their courts, because one Stoic in a crowd of thousands is immune to all their tools of control. The third layer: The Stoic answer to Machiavelli. Let us not mistake this. Machiavelli's words were not advice for us, they were advice for rulers. His warning was meant for princes who wished to dominate. But when we turn his words around, when we wear them like a mirror, we see something far greater. A blueprint for freedom. If the world is built on manipulation, then the Stoic path is the only way to walk untouched through its fire. Marcus Aurelius again whispers across centuries, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this, you have the power to revoke at any moment." That is how the game ends, not by overthrowing rulers, not by escaping society, but by mastering yourself so completely that no ruler can touch your soul. That is the warning. That is the forbidden knowledge. And that is the path we now walk together. You and I must face this. The world is not what it seems. It is not built on fairness, not built on truth, not built on kindness. It is built on leverage. And leverage, Machiavelli warned, is always rooted in the emotions of the ruled. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But why? Because love is fragile, fleeting, dependent on the whims of others. Fear, however, is rooted in the deepest human impulse, the terror of pain and loss. The rulers of old understood this. Control the fear, and you control the man. The rulers of today understand it even more. They do not need to raise armies, they raise anxieties. They do not need to sharpen swords, they sharpen desires. And here we stand, naked, in the middle of this machinery, unless we clothe ourselves in armor. Not steel, not iron, but the Stoic armor of self-control, fear as a weapon. Think carefully. Why do most of us obey rules we know are unjust? Why do we stay in relationships that poison us? Why do we accept jobs that crush our spirit? Because of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of poverty, fear of being cast out of the tribe. Machiavelli knew this fear better than anyone. He understood that men, trembling in their insecurity, will kneel before anyone who offers them safety. That is why he advised princes to cultivate fear, not to torment, but to keep men dependent. But the Stoic turns this weapon into ashes. Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them." Fear is not in the world, it is in us. And if it is in us, it can be conquered. The Stoic response to Machiavelli's warning is this: if the prince rules by fear, then I will become unafraid. If the crowd is enslaved by terror, then I will train myself to meet it with calm. What can the manipulator do to the man who has already embraced loss? What can the tyrant threaten a man who has already accepted death? The Emperor Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire that trembled at the sight of invading hordes. Yet he wrote in his journal, as if to remind himself every morning, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." This is no soft poetry. It is defiance. It is the only rebellion that terrifies manipulators. The rebellion of a man unafraid, desire as a trap. If fear is the whip, desire is the bait. And here, Machiavelli's warning grows sharper. He said that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. They shun danger and are greedy for gain. What he meant was simple. People can be controlled because they always want something. Dangle pleasure before them, and they will walk into your cage willingly. Does this sound ancient? It is not. Look at the advertisements glowing in your hand, whispering to you as you scroll. Look at the staged smiles, the polished bodies, the promises of comfort, luxury, acceptance. This is not freedom, it is manipulation dressed as choice. But here too, the Stoic sees clearly.
Seneca thundered against desire in his letters. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Do you see the power in these words? If you desire less, you cannot be baited. If you hunger for nothing outside of your control, the world cannot bribe you. If you master the art of needing less, no prince, no politician, no merchant can enslave you. This is why the Stoic becomes untouchable. He strips himself of excess, not out of weakness, but out of defiance. He takes away the weapons that rulers use against him. He kills desire before desire kills him. And then there is anger. If fear enslaves the coward and desire enslaves the greedy, anger enslaves the proud. Machiavelli observed that people can be provoked into ruin. A ruler who understands the psychology of outrage can drive his enemies into traps by igniting their temper. Sound familiar? Entire empires have fallen because men could not master their anger. Seneca, who wrote the masterpiece On Anger, warned, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Why delay? Because anger is fire, and all fire dies without fuel. The Stoic does not deny anger, he starves it. He refuses to let it dictate his judgment. He steps back, waits, lets the fury burn itself out. This is not passivity, it is power. To withhold reaction is to take back control. To restrain the impulse to strike, to insult, to lash out. That is the kind of mastery that kings envy. Epictetus again reminds us, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him. The manipulator counts on your anger. The Stoic denies him the satisfaction, the Stoic warrior, neither pawn nor prince. Now let us tie the thread tighter. Fear, desire, anger. These are the levers Machiavelli advised rulers to pull. And indeed, most of humanity dances on those strings. They fear too much. They crave too much. They rage too much. But a Stoic? He cuts the strings. He refuses to be pawn or prince, slave or tyrant. He becomes something greater, a free man. Machiavelli never wrote for the free man. He could not rule him. No one can. This is why you were not supposed to know this truth, because once you do, once you see the machinery of control, once you step off the stage of manipulation, you are no longer useful to those who trade in fear, desire, and anger. You are no longer theirs. You are yours.
Machiavelli's warning in our world. The theater did not end. Do not think Machiavelli's world ended with kings and castles. The theater only grew larger and the stage lights brighter. The Prince of Florence has become the politician of today. The court has become the corporation. The royal decree has become the glowing screen you hold in your hand. And yet the strategy has not changed. The same three levers, fear, desire, and anger, are pulled on us every day with precision Machiavelli himself could never have imagined. Fear in the age of anxiety. Turn on the news. What do you see? Fear. Always fear. Fear of war, fear of disease, fear of climate, fear of enemies, fear of collapse. Why? Because fear keeps us glued. Fear keeps us obedient. Fear convinces us to hand over our freedom in exchange for the illusion of safety. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved." Today, rulers don't need to be feared directly. They only need to keep you afraid. But the Stoic trains for this. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Do not be disturbed. All things are according to nature, and in a little while you will be nobody and nowhere." This sounds harsh, but it is freedom. The fear of death, the fear of ruin, gone, because the Stoic faces them in advance. He rehearses loss. He meditates on mortality.
He looks at his own hands and whispers, "Even these will one day turn to dust." A man who has made peace with death cannot be ruled by the threat of it, and that is why Stoicism remains the antidote to Machiavelli's world. Desire in the age of excess. Now look at the marketplace. Never in history has man been offered so much, so easily, so constantly. Endless food, endless entertainment, endless possessions. But abundance is not freedom, it is a new kind of prison. The tyrant of today does not starve you, he feeds you until you cannot stand. He fattens your desires until you become weak, addicted, easy to predict. Machiavelli observed, "Men are driven more by the things which they desire than by those which they fear." Look around. Entire industries thrive not because we need, but because we crave. Every advertisement is a leash. Every scroll is a chain. But the Stoic, he practices hunger. He practices silence. He practices stillness. Epictetus advised, "When you are delighted with anything, be mindful that you are not delighted in the thing itself, but in your own opinion of it." Do you see the knife hidden in these words? It means that the pleasure was never in the object, it was in you. If you can master your judgment, the bait loses its flavor. The man who can say no is the man who cannot be bought. And then there is anger. Scroll through the endless streams of information, and what do you see? Rage, outrage, insults, conflict, one tribe against another, one scream against another. Why? Because anger is profitable. Anger keeps you engaged. Anger makes you predictable. Anger drives you to act before you think. And when you act blindly, someone else always profits. Machiavelli would smile if he saw this world. He warned that enemies could be destroyed by provoking their wrath. Today, the entire system is designed to provoke. Seneca's On Anger is perhaps more relevant now than ever. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. The Stoic meets anger not with passivity, but with discipline. He watches his pulse, he breathes, he waits. He asks, "Is this under my control? If not, then why give it power?" He knows that outrage is slavery, calmness is rebellion. And so we see it clearly. Fear is used to paralyze, desire is used to seduce, anger is used to provoke. This is Machiavelli's machinery at work in our world 24 hours a day. And most people are enslaved by it without even knowing it. But the Stoic sees. He strips away the illusions. He understands that freedom is not the absence of rulers, but the mastery of self. Marcus Aurelius whispers across centuries, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the real forbidden knowledge. You are not supposed to know this, because once you do, you stop being a pawn. You stop dancing to the strings. You stop feeding the machine. You become untouchable, and the world fears the untouchable. So, what do? We train. Like warriors of the soul, we must build our armor daily, not with swords, not with shields, but with discipline, with restraint, with clarity. The modern world will not stop pulling its levers. It will not stop dangling desire. It will not stop spreading fear. It will not stop provoking anger. But we, together, can stop being ruled by them. This is Machiavelli's warning turned on its head. Yes, rulers manipulate the weak, but the man who has mastered himself has stepped outside their reach. He is feared not because he is cruel, but because he is free.
The training ground of the Stoic. Why training is necessary. A truth must be spoken plainly. Reading philosophy is not enough. Quoting Marcus Aurelius is not enough. Knowing Machiavelli's warning is not enough. The weak man reads, nods, and continues to be a pawn. The strong man trains, daily, relentlessly. Just as a soldier sharpens his sword, we sharpen the mind. Just as an athlete disciplines his body, we discipline the soul. Stoicism is not a library to admire, it is a weapon to wield. Seneca declared, "Philosophy teaches us to act, not to speak." If you and I are to rise above the machinery of manipulation, we must train. And the training begins with 3 great exercises. Premeditatio malorum, the rehearsal of evils. Voluntary discomfort, the weapon of simplicity. The discipline of assent, mastery of judgment. Exercise I, premeditatio malorum, the rehearsal of evils. Imagine right now that you lost everything you cling to, your possessions, your reputation, even the people you love. Horrifying? Yes. But the Stoic rehearses this not to live in despair, but to rob fate of its sting. Marcus Aurelius would wake and remind himself, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil." Do you see the brilliance here? By expecting loss, by rehearsing adversity, the Stoic enters battle already armored. Fear cannot control the man who has already surrendered the worst. Machiavelli warned rulers to use fear as a tool. The Stoic answers, "I have already faced fear in my mind. What can you take from me that I have not already surrendered?" This is not pessimism. This is preparation. Exercise 2. Voluntary discomfort, the weapon of simplicity. Desire is the bait that rulers dangle before us. So what does the Stoic do? He learns to want less. Seneca practiced voluntary poverty. He would eat the simplest food, wear coarse clothing, sleep on hard beds, even though he lived in wealth. Why? He explains, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" This practice destroys desire at its root. The man who can be content with nothing cannot be bribed with everything. Machiavelli observed that princes manipulate men by feeding their greed. The Stoic answers, "I have trained myself to eat like a beggar, to dress like a slave, to sleep like a soldier. What luxury can you tempt me with now?" This is not weakness. This is invincibility. Exercise 3. The discipline of assent, mastery of judgment. The greatest weapon of manipulation is not fear, nor desire, nor anger. It is belief. If someone can make you believe that wealth equals happiness, you will sell your life chasing it. If someone can make you believe that honor equals truth, you will kill to defend illusions. If someone can make you believe that insult equals injury, you will waste years in rage. Epictetus taught his students, "Do not be disturbed by appearances, but say to yourself, 'It is only an appearance, and not the thing itself.' Then examine it and test it by the rules which you possess. And first, by this, the chief test of all, whether it concerns the things which are in our control or those which are not in our control." This is the discipline of assent. Every thought that enters the mind is questioned. Every belief is tested. Nothing is accepted blindly. Machiavelli knew that rulers live on the untested beliefs of the masses. The Stoic answers, "I will test every thought. I will not assent until it passes the trial. My mind is my fortress." The stories of the masters. It is easy to think this is just theory, but the great Stoics lived this discipline in blood and fire. Epictetus, born a slave, beaten so badly by his master that his leg broke forever. Did he cry out in despair? No. He used the pain as fuel. He became a philosopher so unshakable that emperors sent his sons to study under him. The slave became the master. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, sat in tents on the battlefield, sick and weary, writing in his journal words that still echo today. Surrounded by war,
by plague, by betrayal. He wrote not of luxury, but of discipline. He trained his mind to remain calm while the empire trembled. Seneca, advisor to Nero, the most dangerous tyrant in Rome, surrounded by corruption, manipulation, and death itself, he wrote letters teaching the art of calmness, of simplicity, of inner freedom. And when Nero ordered his death, Seneca calmly slit his veins, turning even dying into a lesson of philosophy. These were not men who lived in ivory towers. They lived in the jaws of Machiavelli's warning, in worlds ruled by fear, desire, and anger. And yet, they remained free. If they could do it in empires of tyranny, can we not do it in a world of distractions?
Forging the armor. The exercises, the stories, the wisdom, they all aim at one thing: to forge armor. Fear loses its grip when we rehearse loss. Desire loses its poison when we practice simplicity. Anger loses its chain when we master assent. This is the training ground. This is the rebellion. This is how we rise beyond the machinery of manipulation. And this is why you are not supposed to know this. Because a society of men and women who practice Stoic training is a society immune to fear-mongering, immune to greed, immune to outrage. Such a society cannot be ruled by manipulation. It can only be led by wisdom. That is dangerous knowledge, dangerous to the rulers, liberating to us. And so we return to Machiavelli's warning, not as a prophecy of doom, but as a mirror held up to our own weakness. The truth is simple. The world will always remain unpredictable, cruel, and filled with shadows. But within us lies the citadel of reason, the fortress of discipline, the fire that no storm can extinguish. If we conquer our rage, our envy, our fear, then no prince, no tyrant, no betrayal can ever conquer us. That is the essence of freedom. That is what Stoics called living in agreement with nature, rising above the chaos, walking through darkness with an unshaken will. Remember this: the world doesn't bend for those who plead. It bends for those who master themselves. So let us not waste time in weakness. Let us sharpen our souls. Let us become untouchable. Because in the end, the warning is clear. Those who do not rule themselves will be ruled by others.